a lot of the music that we play, we have different key centers that composers take us through, and this piece goes through many different key centers, not because of how Dr. Gillingham changes key with the key signature, but how he changes what our ear attaches itself to, either as destination chords or as transition chords. And we're going to do some of those as we go through this piece. We'll point them out. But at the very beginning, he's starting in a minor key, starting in F minor. Now, a lot of times we don't practice playing minor scales, but today, here's what we're going to do. Would everybody play F concert, just F, G, A, just the regular F major scale. Just play the regular F major scale. Repeat the top note and then come back down. All right? Ready? Go. We've just played the F major scale. That's a one that everybody's familiar with. You play in the key of F all the time. But what Dr. Gillingham has done is he's put this in F minor. Now, we don't always practice minor scales. So here's what we're going to do. We're going to play the F scale, but we're going to play it in the key signature that he's written at the beginning of this. 4 flats for concert pitch instruments, 2 flats for the B flat instruments, 3 flats for the horns, and 1 flat for the saxes. Here we go. Play the F scale, but in the key signature that he wrote here. Ready? Go. That's our first key center, and that's the sound we want to get in our ear at the very beginning, whether you play as a group or individually. Now, one of the things that Dr. Gillingham has done here is he's given us a chance to match. He's given us a chance to match a percussion voice, but also to match how we peel off of that percussion voice and imitate. There's so many times in band music that we do imitation. This gives us a chance to practice that imitation in a different kind of way. In the bells, he wants us to imitate this kind of ringing effect that bells, or this blending effect that bells sometimes have. So listen to the chimes at the very beginning. Okay, so what we're going to try to do now, when you enter, we're going to try to have you imitate the sound of those chimes. Notice that there's always some ringing afterwards, isn't there? There's an attack, a beginning of the note, and some ringing. Now, trombones, you get to start this at the beginning. So could I hear trombones only in the first 3 measures? Great. Now we're going to add euphonium and tuba to that same thing because they complete the F at the end of it. Here's trombones, euphonium, and tuba. 3, go. Great. So now how you imitate this is the first trombones continue to ring, but what happened to the first note that the chimes played? It started to decay just a little bit, didn't it? Start to go away just a little bit. But we heard the new note, and then we heard the final note. Let's do it once again, and let's add the chimes this time. So this is what you're imitating. Okay, and then we go to the next part, but in the third measure, we start adding a whole new set of voices. So our brain tells us, our mind should be trying to find, our ear should be trying to find the chimes, because we're going to try to imitate what the chimes did based on what the trombones did. That's what our brain tells us. Our ear tells us where we're going to listen to. Now, our faces and fingers provide the means of doing that. So in the third measure, could I now hear those of you in the trumpets, horns, clarinet 2 and 3, and saxophones that imitate what the chimes do? This is measure 3. 6, 4. 1, ready, go. Okay, and we're going to do now, we're going to add the set of new voices that imitate what the trombones did in the first measure, but you're doing it double fast, as we talked about this compression or diminution, and you're going to listen for the chimes. All right, here we go. This is the third measure with trumpets and all the other horns, saxes. it goes back to the trombones. We repeat. So in music, we have introduction and we have repetition, don't we? Repetition is our chance to check ourselves. Can we remember what we did the first time? Can we repeat it the same way? Can we make it sound exactly the same? Okay, so let's put it together now, and just without the hi-hat for a moment, let's see if we can imitate the chimes. Those of you who are entering for the first time, can you match the people that are already playing? Can you do the same style that they created, imitating the chimes at the beginning and then also the bells? All right, here's the beginning, but without hi-hat. And ready, go. Great. It's at that point that everybody collects together in vertical harmony and vertical alignment. Very good, everybody. Now, could we go back? And I want you to listen to what happens in the hi-hat. We've talked about harmony being interesting and giving a shape, direction, and organization to music. We've talked about the melody pulling our ear in a certain way, but we've also haven't talked much about rhythm. And what does that rhythm provide for us? So if you listen to the hi-hat, this gives us the forward energy that we're going to try to put all of that against. Just listen to the hi-hat at the beginning. Great. So harmony gives us organization, harmony gives us direction, harmony gives us this contour in music that creates interest. Melody draws our ear in a different way, but one of the things that provides momentum and forward propulsion is this rhythm that's created underlying everything else that goes on. I'd like to put all of this together and have you play with what you're hearing the percussion do in the hi-hat. Okay, here we go. This is everybody from the beginning. Nice big sounds, nice good sounds. 1, 2, 3. So one of the things about time that's interesting is we have external time, which is what's given to you by a conductor or a metronome. We have internal time, which is what you do with it. But here's the important one, and that's shared time. And that's what do you do with it as a group with somebody else telling you what to do. In other words, we're going to listen with our eyes. We're going to hear with our ears, but we're going to watch with our ears. All of this is going to be dependent on what our ears do to bring this together. So attach it to the hi-hat, play it once again, using your ears now to match time in the hi-hat, but also to match the chimes and the bells. Here we go. 1, 2, ready, go. What we do at this point is all Dr. Gillingham has done is he's taken that same idea, but instead of doing it as an exercise or doing it as an introduction, he now puts it into the framework of a piece of music, using that same idea. Pa-ya-dum, pom-pom, notes you've already played, notes you've already done before. Now, as we've talked about before, one of the things that's really interesting about Dr. Gillingham's music, and many other composers as well, is they take us through these different key structures in a sequential kind of way, in a sequence where something happens the same way it did before. He's given us this melody at the beginning of the bells and the chimes and so forth, and we've imitated that. Now, how do we take it through the different key centers? So would you take measure 11 and just play the chord at the beginning of measure 11? Nice, good sound. Great. Now, would you go to measure 13. This is our next intermediary or transition chord. Great. Now go to measure 17, which is, or 15, which is our next transition chord. Great. Always listening for the best tone quality and going to the aggregate pitch of the ensemble. Now going to measure 17. Marvelous. And then we end up back at measure 19, which is the same chord we had at 11, but it's scored differently. Now, can we make our arrival at 19 sound with the same quality of sound as we did at 11? Play 11. Now play 19. Good. Now we need to try to make those chords sound the same balance and the same pitch center. Okay, so let's do this now, putting it all together using these sequences. He uses 2-bar sequences. And we talked about trying to imitate what we did at the beginning. Imitation, if we've learned how to do it one way in a piece and it comes and it returns, we can save an awful lot of rehearsal time. Plus, we apply our critical thinking skills to how do we do it then? What did it sound like that time? Can we make it sound like that again, or can we imitate that same kind of idea? So let's start at measure 11 and go up to 19. 2, ready, go. Okay, very good, very good. Now he's added these accents. And he's added accents differently from where we started with this ringing of the chimes, trying to imitate that, into adding weight to the sound, giving it a little bit more energy. So as we add weight to the sound, we want to add emphasis. That's why we add accents, isn't it? Just to add emphasis. But when we're adding accents in our voices, if we want to really emphasize something that's important, do we raise our voice to add emphasis? Do we do it this way, or do we do it this way? If I'm speaking to you and I really want to emphasize something to you that's really, really important, do I raise my voice or do I lower my voice? I lower my voice, don't I? Okay? So if we correlate this to what we do with air and what we do with our tongue, the temptation is to play with harder articulation. So if this is the air that we're using, and this is the articulation that we're applying through tongue, or however we're applying the articulation, if we do this, we're adding punctuation to it, aren't we? If we do this, we're adding weight to it, aren't we? We're pushing against it. We're pushing air, as opposed to a harder articulation tongue. So in this case, what Dr. Gillingham is after is more weighted sound with air and less articulate sound with the tongue. Can we do that? And we're going to go back and we're going to start at bar 11. And when you have the articulations now, it's not about playing them shorter or playing them with more punctuation. It's now about playing them with more weight. Here's bar 11. Everybody? 1, 2, 3, oh. Great. Now at measure 19, he gives us a chance to figure out what we're going to do with a diminuendo. How do we gauge a diminuendo in getting softer? Well, a lot of it has to do with imagery, doesn't it? What does your mind tell you that should happen here? Where did we start? Did we start with our fingers? Nope. Did we start with our embouchure? Nope. Did we start with our ears? No, we started with our brain. So what does our brain tell us that should happen to get softer? Well, we know we're going to use less air. But when we use less air, oftentimes the sound disintegrates. It doesn't sound quite as good. But here's what we're going to use as a guide. I'm going to have all percussion play their downbeat of bar 19 fortissimo, and I want everybody to count to 8. And I want you to listen to what happens to that sound over 8 counts, okay? Play your first note, but play it fortissimo. 1, 2, percussion, go. 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, there. What happened to that sound over those 8 counts? it got soft on its own, didn't it? And it got soft on its own because there was nothing to interrupt that sound. It was just the natural decay of that sound. Listen to it again. 1, 2, percussion, go. And it didn't matter whether it was bass drum, timpani, chimes, bells, vibraphone. All of them got softer on their own. So we're going to listen to this decay over 8 beats, and you're going to try to match that sound on your diminuendo. 1, 2, percussion, go. Great. Didn't that work terrific? So at bar 19, flutes and clarinets, your ear is going to go with the decay of what you heard from the chimes. I'm going to have the chimes and bells, vibraphone, bass drum, and timpani play one more time. Listen to what happens over 8 counts. 1, 2, listen, go. Okay, you're going to gauge your dynamic to that. Here's flutes and clarinets joining percussion. Bar 19. 1, 2, ready, go. Okay, now the challenge that's presented here is you change back to the first note you played, which is an octave higher than where you started, isn't it? But the dynamic didn't change, did it? Now you get to grow from that back to where you started before. Great. And then trombones, low brass, when you join us in bar 21, you're going to do exactly the opposite of what they just did. You're going to provide direction now to that same thing. So could I hear everybody please starting at bar 19? Imitating chimes, imitating the decay, and then growing from there. 1, 2, ready, go. Okay, everybody remember back to the very beginning when I had you play the F scale before we played it with the key from before? Well, guess what? At bar 23, there's that F scale, F major. Would everybody play measure 23? The same F that we started at the very beginning with. Ready? Go. Bravo. Now, one of the things that's so interesting in music is when a composer goes from minor to major. Because what they do is they give us this uplifting feel that happens coming from a minor key, which is dark, to the major key, which is much brighter. So I want you to emphasize that through the crescendo, the direction of 21, 22. So let's start at 19, and let's start with the flutes and the clarinets and all the percussion, and then low brass. Join us in measure 21 if you would. We're going to layer these things together. Here's measure 19. 1, 2, ready, go. Okay, so now if we were to write on our music at measure 23, F major, as it relates to the transposition of your instrument, F for the concert pitch instruments, G for the B-flat transposing instruments, C for the horns, and G for the saxophone, or D for the saxophones. Now we don't have to think about the accidentals. The accidentals will take care of themselves because we're playing in that new key. All right, so let's go at 19. And focusing on our arrival at 21, following the decrescendo. 1, 2, ready, go. Great. Now he's put us in a position of going into this new key because we've recognized it goes back to B-flat major at this point. Okay? And guess what? He gives us plenty of opportunity to repeat this because one of the ways that we create these different sequences consistently is through repetition. Now, can you repeat this over and over? Can you do it multiple times in the same way you did the first time? So let's try it. Let's just go from bar 19 and let's see if we can, our ear will guide us through each one of these. Recognize where you go to the new key center or the new tonality center and play in that key. Here we go. This is bar 19. 1, 2, ready, go. Grow, 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 and E. Okay, and then he takes us back to what we did at the very beginning. Now, if we had changed keys at every one of those key center points, your eyes would go cross, your brains would be scrambled, and you would say, well, what key should I be playing in now? But your ear tells you where you go now, and you reinforce that. In many normal kind of warm-ups that bands use around the country, they play a chorale that's all in the same key, or they play a series of exercises that's pretty much all in the same key. And that works well for that key. But as we transition into music that you're going to prepare for contest or performance or any kind of competitive environment or just playing music for a concert, music doesn't work that way. Music works in groupings, it works in sequences because of the direction harmony takes us. This puts us in a position to do that. Okay? Good. Then guess what happens at bar 35? We have our friend the hi-hat that returns to provide momentum. And we do everything we did at the beginning, but on a different set of pitch centers. Now starting on C flat, which is not necessarily a familiar note to many of you, but it's really not that difficult because it's just a B natural, isn't it? Still fourth position. Okay? And then we get to do that from there to the end in these shifting pitch centers. So up to this point, we've had all of these new ideas, but we haven't applied any of them beyond that. If we've done it to this point, we can do it from here on. Now it comes the sight reading part. So can we start at the beginning, play all the way through? After we pass bar 35, can we apply all of the things we did before, but on a different set of pitch centers on different sets of notes? Okay, so let's go all the way through it. Here's the very beginning, bells. Doing great. Everybody's doing terrific. 1, 2, 3, go.